Good evening. We are starting the novel once again, and we are in chapter 28. In chapter 28, we further come to know about the relationship between Puli and the couple, Rukmani and Nadan. And it's a kind of a symbiotic relationship. We find here both parties helping each other. And Puli is helping them with his knowledge about the city and tactics. And Rukmani and Nadan in turn return affection, love, caring, and mother's love as well. So we also read that Puli managed to lead them to stone quarry. And now Rukmani and Nadan are working there, and they are able to earn more than before. Now Rukmani has given up a temporary job of being a reader and write up letters. And from that she didn't earn much. And to go back to the village, she has to earn more. And now they are happier than before as they can earn more, and they are getting close to realizing their dream of returning to the village. From counting annas as the days went by, we began to count rupees. So little by little, they accumulate money, they gather money. And this is how money increased. 4 rupees, 5, 6. And now all three of them are excited. And even Puli began to show excitement. There was a time when we were so well, or the stones were so kind, that we earned a rupee in a single day. This is quite an achievement, earning a rupee in a single day. And Rukmani entrusted all her money to Puli. I handed a coin as usual to Puli, who thrust it into the ragged pouch which covered his manhood. Where he transferred the money we gave him from there, I do not know. It was his business and he never told. Certainly not one pie was ever lost. So can you write there? Their faith in Puli. And Rukmani and Nadan trusted Puli. So there was no reason to suspect him. And all their money is in Puli's care. And of course, even though Nadan and Rukmani were adults, they proved to be incapable of looking after themselves or protecting their money in the city. And of course, we read how they lost their possessions, and after their money, and became almost like beggars afterwards. And after that, Rukmani lost faith in herself because she found herself to be incapable of protecting her money. Now Puli is the one He's like the treasurer, and he's keeping their money, and that is in his safe custody. And certainly not one pie was ever lost. So that is their faith in Puli. So now they are in a happier mood because they are now slowly getting close to realization of their dream of getting back to their village. Now weather has started to change. A thin drizzle was falling, so fine it might have been dew. The ground beneath my feet felt like the earth in the early morning and no longer straight. In fancy, I was already home. You can mark this as well. In fancy, I was already home. Fancy is imagination. And then let's move on to the next section. So that day they were returning from the quarry. And Nadan said that he would go to the temple because he was a little tired. Besides, it does not take two to buy rice cakes. So Rukmani, as usual, waited to buy rice cakes for them. And this time, Rukmani is in a good mood, cheerful, and she said that perhaps this time they would be able to buy more than rice cakes. You go on, and we will give you a surprise. There is a semicolon here, okay? So next we find Rukmani by the small shop. And then she was trying to select from the range of food items available at the small shop. And this time she wanted to buy something more, a delicacy, and then she was at a loss which item to buy. And the seller was displaying food items and encouraging them to buy. And he spoke about uh, the food being very tastier, like yeah, potato fritters, crisp in butter and melting inside, and fried pancakes. I have myself stuffed with onions because he realized that this time they have more money than before, and they wanted to buy something more, right? And then he spoke about sweets as well, like sugar walls, these exquisite curlies, right? And then they are examining food items without deciding, and without being able to decide which one they should buy. So finally, We bought the fried pancakes, one each, paying 6 annas for the three and 4 annas for two rice cakes. And Rukmani felt that she was spending too much. Well, if we are extravagant, it is only once. And she wanted to console herself, convince herself that they were not always spending like this, and this is a rare treat, and they deserve that rare treat so well because they have been working hard and then not having enough to eat. So she was seeking to console her uneasy mind. 10 annas is only a little over what we usually spend. The change will do us good. And Rukmani referred to it, mentally referred to that act as a recklessness. That is not being very careful or thrifty with the money. And we know that is out of her character. Usually Rukmani is a very thrifty one and she doesn't want to spend much. And I think you can remember there was one instance like that at Deepavali, and at that time also they had come to more money than before because Arjun and Thambi had started to work at the tannery and they were bringing home some money. So the family was able to buy clothes and then buy food items, and their economy improved at that time. So Rukmani in that year decided to celebrate Deepavali by giving her children some money to buy fireworks. So this is the second time she was compelled to spend recklessly without being very careful with the money. And next we find Rukmani is buying a cart for Puli. Right, I'm not going to read each and everything. Right, so they were walking and they went past a hawker, and this hawker is very clever. He had a sensitive nose and sniffed that we had a little money and little control to go with it. So the hawker came after them and exhibiting his wares. Finally, he took out a small wooden cart on wheels to which he attached a string and pulled it along behind him as he came following us. And then Puli was tempted by the sight of that cart. A dum dum cart, cried Puli, and he echoed after the man. We need not buy, let us only stop and watch. He tugged at my sari. So both stopped to look at the toy, and Rukmani thought that it was a pretty thing, lovingly made, exactly like a real cart. The wood, skillfully carved, it painted spokes to the wheels and a yoke which moved on the necks of the painted oxen. Pull it and hear the drum beat, said the wily man. And he was a tricky person because he wanted to sell this, holding out the string to Puli, and how could he resist it? He was only a child. And Rukmani has immense sympathy for this child. Was only a child when I myself was enchanted. And after that, we find pulley jerk in the string and how the cart moved and how the drumsticks the carter held in his hands came down and tiny drum in front of him, real drum. And so the sound is emitted, dum dum sound is emitted. The quicker you pull, the faster it beat. 2 annas only. You will never be able to buy cheaper. It cost me all of that to make. There is no profit to me in it. I only sell because I must. I have not sold one toy all day. So this is a very difficult situation. So Puli and Rukmani too they both of them were unable to resist the temptation. And then Puli was looking at Rukmani with begging eyes, eyes like lambs, bright eyes, hopeful eyes, and he still held the string between the stumps of his fingers. And we know that he does not have complete fingers but only stumps, and kept yanking at it as if the drumming was sweet to his ears. Why do you not pay for it with your own money if you want it? I said uneasily. I see you begging every day. You know I have spent more than I ought already. 2 annas more won't matter, he wheedled. I promise I will never ask you for anything. But you have money of your own, I repeated. I have seen it myself. I've spent it all, he said pitifully. People gave at first, but now they are used to me. It is a hard world. So he says that now he doesn't have money, and people are used to his side now, and they don't give him money as before, he says. Again, I thought he is a child after all, still tender, still eager. Whatever he may say or do, he has lived only a short time, not easily. Right, and after that we find Rukmani took from Puli some coins which he kept in his pouch, still warm from his body, and then handed that money to the hawker. And then Rukmani wanted to buy another cart. And now Rukmani is planning to go back. And for my little grandson, I thought. And Rukmani decided to buy another one for Sakrabani, the grandson. I thought, who has had so much to bear from his birth. Right, Sakrabani had so much to bear from his birth, and then he is socially cornered. He's like a social outcast. First, because of his birth, illegitimate child, and then because of his being an albino. And Rukmani visualized his white transparent cheeks flushing with excitement. And then she also remembered her daughter with a face like a flower, rare smile that graced it. And then she buys that cart, and Hawker took the money, and then he went off quickly, no doubt fearing that I would come to my senses. And after that, they were returning to the temple with with two carts and then food, rice cakes, and this time rare treat, pancakes. So the remaining money is reduced to 2 anna piece. And Rukmani now thought, what would she say to her husband about not being able to keep that money? And then Nadan was there when they were getting close to the temple. Right, and then Nadan could see the cart, and now Rukmani almost regretted, and as an excuse, she said, I don't know what came over me. I shall work very hard tomorrow to make up, that is, to make up with the lost money. You will see. But Nadan was paying only a little attention. Nadan looked at me. His eyes were dull. He's exasperated, I thought. No wonder. So Rukmani thought that he was impatient with her, her act of spending too much. And then Rukmani wanted to change his mood with false cheerfulness. She exhibited what she brought for him, pancakes. Still Nadan is not that interested. And Rukmani realized that he was unwell. I saw him stagger to one side. Away from the stone corridors, when the spasm of sickness was over, he came back to lean against a pillar, was shivering. So Nadan is sick, and he thought that it was food. It turned my stomach, but Rukmani thought that it was because he worked too hard. And then Nadan said that the fever had been coming all day since this morning. And it was sickness he had earlier, and few years back he was continuously down with fever, and now it has come back. And Rukmani felt his body and then realized that his skin was burning hot. He had obviously been ill for several hours. Why did you have to do it? I wanted to say why, but I only said, why did you have to do it? That is, why did you have to work? You didn't rest. So Nadan, even though he was unwell, he didn't want to rest. He continued to work. And Rukmani wanted to ask, why did you continue to work if you are unwell? But she was unable to ask that question because the answer is obvious. Because he too yearns to go back to the village, collect some money as soon as possible. He wants to go back to the village. And then he was advised to lie and rest. And next we read about Rukmani's caring nature, loving. she's a loving wife. I took his head in my lap and set my hands massaging the pain from his limbs. And then it was morning, right? So rain started as a fine drizzle. By morning, it developed into a heavy downpour. So monsoon season has started. So monsoon season in India is a very unpleasant season, and there are very heavy rains and then storm and floods. We are, as always, at the beginning of the monsoon, lay like a blanket upon the earth, lay like a blanket because of the heaviness of the rain, damp, suffocating, and windy as well. And it was wet and chilly. And Nathan, who was unwell, was still shivering, but much better, no longer violently. And Nathan had eaten his share of rice cake, and Rukmani thought that he should be better. It is a cold which makes him shiver. He is advised to stay behind and rest. It is not good for you to go out in this rain. Tomorrow will be enough. Tomorrow and tomorrow it will rain, he replied. It is a monsoon. I cannot sit here idling while the days slip past and we are still far from home. And he has strong determination to work. And then he knows that the rain will not end. And in the meantime, he does not want to sit and do nothing. I cannot sit here idly because days are slipping past and then still they are not home. We are still far from home. So he doesn't want to waste a minute. And he wants to earn money, work and earn money so that they will get closer to achieving their target, that is to go home. So three of them went to the quarry as usual, and there are other workers going towards the quarry, and then there are some workers, so they are considered richer than the others because they have palm leaf hooded clothes to cover themselves, to protect themselves from rain. But then most workers don't have such a hood because these protectors are expensive, 12 annas a piece. Most of the workers did without. Most of the workers like Rukmani and Nadan went without that protective cover. And now it is very unpleasant because rain has softened the road and then mud, liquid mud, and it's difficult to walk. And there were footprints in the mud, and the cart tracks were full of water, and it's muddy as well, right? Cartwheels sank deep in the mud as they turned, mud spattered continuously from the creaking wheels. The worst season of the year, a voice was grumbling. Next year, whatever happens, I shall not work. Huh, you say that every year. No, really, this time I mean it, even if it means not eating. So, that is the pathetic situation of these people who are forced to work in adverse weather condition. And this person was grumbling. Anonymous person was grumbling about the unpleasantness of the season, and he says that he won't work next year no matter whatever happens. But then the other person says that I have said so earlier too. And so the first speaker says, this time I mean it, even if it means not eating. So if they don't work, they can't eat. And even though they wanted to stop this, they can't do it. They have to continue working in order to survive. And Rukmani thought plans, everyone had plans. They were all built on money. Can you mark this? They were all built on money. The plans of people built on money. So we can see again and again how money controls the society. Save enough to keep dry. Save enough to cast one's chains. This is the power of money. And to keep dry, you have to save enough money. You need to have enough money to keep yourself dry, away from the rain. And to cast one's chains. Chains are the fetters, right? That is to give yourself freedom, you should have money. If not, you're always in chains. You're forced to work. But money enables you to enjoy your freedom and enjoy a better living condition. Save enough to go away. That is to cast one's chains and save enough to go away. So money provides you with mobility as well. Okay, so this is about the power of money. Next, yeah, right. So we find they are at the quarry, and then Nathan is still unwell. Nathan behind me was panting. The breath came and went so quickly that his chest resembled a bellows. I will rest when we are home, he said to me impatiently. There will be plenty of time then. Right. So impatiently he said, because he knows that he should rest. But he is not prepared to do it. And resting means they are getting late. They are getting away from their target. That is to go home as soon as possible. So the journey will be delayed. So he plans to rest once he gets back. So this is ironic because we know that He did not live to realize his dream. So Rukmani, perhaps now regretfully, because Rukmani listened to him at that time and allowed him to work in that bad weather, and he was unwell, right? So for the whole of that week, they continued as usual, and Nadan's condition didn't improve, didn't get worse. And on the seventh day, the ague came upon him again, that is, fever came back. But he did not stop work. A kind of frenzy drove him on. So that's a dogged determination, strong determination, even though he is not fit to work. So that is actually, they have a certain hope now. Hope is to go back to the village as soon as possible. So they are working in order to go home as soon as possible. Right. So in this bad weather and in bad health also, they continue to work. And then it is impossible to work now, due to heavy rains. The rain had even defeated Puli the lion-hearted. Right, Puli the lion-hearted, the brave and courageous. He would not accompany us to the quarry. So this is the end of another working day. When I took up the sack, not full today, the stones rattled loosely inside. Don't wait for me, I said to my husband. I will be with you soon. Don't be long, he said. And then Rukmani took the sack and waited to get payment. This time only 6 annas, less than we have earned before. But we have nearly enough now, I thought, coming through the gloom. I must see about a carter. Maybe it will not be as much as we have reckoned. Then we can leave at once. Right. And Rukmani now decided that they have collected enough money to go back home. And she even thought about hiring a carter. And that makes her think about a home. Would it still be there? I saw before me my daughter and shy white-faced Sakrabani and Puli. If only he would come, how happy we would be, my husband and I. Not Puli though. He would sadly refuse. I shall miss him, I thought sadly. But he won't even notice our going. Right. So Rukmani, uh, then with relief, reached the road because it was difficult to uh, walk in mud, and there are stones scattered everywhere. So finally, she came back to the road and then walking. And there she saw a small knot of people gathered, but she didn't want to stop. Then one of the group called, I see to your man, he has fallen. So one called Rukmani and then said that her husband has fallen down. And Rukmani was able to see Nadan on the ground, and people are gathered round him. So they parted to let Rukmani through, then closed their ranks as I knelt beside him. So he was lying by the side of the road where someone had carried him, not in the gutter but away from the road to avoid the mud churning cart wheels. So there he was lying, and this unpleasant place, muddy and gutter is beside him. Swollen gutter ran like a stream noisily, and Rukmani could hear his hoarse breathing, and his body was chill. And rain is pitiless. It came splashing down uncaring. And Rukmani didn't have any shield to cover him. At last I unwound part of my sari, meaning to tear it. But the material would not tear. Where my hands were, it gave, limp and perished. And Rukmani cannot tear her sari to get a piece of cloth to cover him. So in despair, she had to wear the sari again. But then nobody gave anything because nobody had anything to give. They were not so bad, but they too were very poor and they didn't have anything to give because men were in loin clothes. Women, there were some women in saris but tattered and sodden like mine. It makes no difference, I thought to myself, and found the words being murmured by another. So next we find how Nadan was carried by people gathered there. One man took him by the armpits, another his feet. So Rukmani was walking behind, and the other women they were showering words of comfort upon her. And so there are some questions like, has he been ill long? Yes, sometime. Have you no sons to help? Can you mark this question? Having sons, no sons to help, because it's obvious that they are helped by no one. They have no one. So at first she said, yes. No, not here. So this is the expected duty of sons, to look after his parents when they get old and feeble and cannot work. So automatically the question came, have you no sons to help? And we know Rukmani and Nadan came to the city to find Murugan. But then Murugan had even deserted his own family, so they had to come back to the temple disappointed. Since they have no money and possessions, they are now earning money to go back to the village. And then Rukmani licked her lips. There was a taste on them of salt and of the fresh sweetness of rainwater. I did not know I had been crying. So she had been crying. That she tasted tears, salt tears. And let's move on to the next chapter, chapter 29. And it's a short chapter that deals with Nadan's passing away. So this is very descriptive. So we find picturesque language. And at first, the first paragraph is about memories, different memories. And these memories are given colors. And these memories are still fresh in her mind. Uh, right. The fires themselves are always there. They will never be extinguished until my life itself is done. Right? And the memories of that night are hard and bright within me like a diamond. And the fires that flash from it have strange powers. So these are unforgettable memories. So according to Rukmani, they are hard, bright, and they are like a diamond. A rhetorical question is there. What do I remember? So Rukmani remembered every word, every tiny detail. And she remembered they are walking along the wet deserted street. I remember looking up for the flare that had ever burnt on the top of the temple and it was quenched. So you can mark this. And the temple had that light, that flare that ever burnt at the top. So that is like a guiding light. And we know when they came to the city, they were guided by that beacon light, right? That was burning on the top of the temple. But now in this rain, it was quenched. And then Rukmani mentally repeated, fire cannot burn in water. Right, so this is somewhat synonymous to the fate of Nadan. And his life is about to be quenched. Right. So next we find how the others laid Nadan on the paved floor of the temple, and Rukmani sank down beside him. So he was not taken to a hospital where he can get some medical attention, but he is brought to the temple. And then somebody brought a light, and after that, Rukmani was cleaning Nadan's body, and it's caked in mud and wet and dirty. And sympathetic people were there surrounding them. But later, they melted away into the darkness in ones and twos. And then Nadan had repeated fits, and his head kept twitching from side to side. And then, yeah, rays from the lantern fell on his wasted face, on the tight yellowed skin, lips split with fever, on his limbs which were like a child's. Sometimes his breath came between his chattering teeth in gusts, rising above the rain and the winds that swished down the corridors. At other times, I had to bend to listen. So hour after hour, his body suffered. So it was painful to Rukmani to watch, just to watch and then do nothing. But then she was forced to watch him slowly die, and his body's flesh is tormented. And now it's midnight, and midnight is in between time, when it is neither day nor night, when nature seems to pause, to sigh, and turn and prepare for another day. So it's in between time. And his fits eased at midnight, and he seems to get better. And in this stillness, Rukmani saw him open his eyes. His hand came to my face, tender and searching, wiping away the unruly tears. You must not cry, dearest. What has to be, has to be. Hush, I said, rest and grow better. I have only to stretch out my hand, he said, to feel the coldness of death. Would you hold me when my time is come? I'm at peace, do not grieve. So now Nadan realizes that he's about to die. And he says that it's at my arm's length. I have only to stretch out to feel the coldness of death. And he says that he is at peace. And he asks Rukmani not to grieve, not to cry. If I grieve, I said, it is not for you, but for myself, beloved. How shall I endure to live without you, who are my love and my life? You are not alone, he said, I live in my children. Right, so that is a much repeated idea that parents live in their children. And he was silent, and then I heard him murmur my name and bent down. Have we not been happy together? Always, my dearest, always. It is slipping away fast, he said. Rest with me a little. And so I laid my face on his, and for a while his breath fell soft and light as a rose petal on my cheek. So those are very gentle memories, gentle as this human being, light as a rose petal. Then he sighed as if in weariness and turned his face to me, and so his gentle spirit withdrew and the light went out in his eyes. So this is actually a gentle passing. So this is how he peacefully died. So that chapter is about Nadan's death, and we find a detailed description of how he died. So now we come to chapter 30, and this is the shortest chapter in the whole novel, and this brings everything to a close. And this is like the aftermath. So days went by after his death, and Nadan is no longer beside Rukmani. There's a great emptiness in her. And then I picked up the fragments of my life and put them together. All but the missing piece. Missing piece is Nadan. And this is Rukmani's courage. Picking up the fragments, that is broken pieces of her life. and she's putting them together. And out of my affliction, I called to Puli. And then Rukmani didn't want to leave Puli behind, and she was in sorrow. And she promised Puli several things. That is, one is priceless treasure of health. Priceless treasure of health. But anyway, she knows that it is not hers to give. And also immense love and a family, caring, and he compassionate creature. And we know Puli is actually a child of the city, but he has compassionate nature, and then he is an honest child also, very artful, very smart, and who helped them so much, would drew from me the arrows of sorrow one by one. And Puli provided immense moral support to Rukmani. And he listened. When I came home, I was not alone. Right, so Puli has decided to go with Rukmani to her village. And then now we find Rukmani back at home. So good to be home at last. At last. I looked about me at the land, and it was life to my starving spirit. But we know that they have already lost the land. I felt the earth beneath my feet and wept for happiness. And to these peasants, land is life. And they are like the extension of the land. And land too is an extension of these people. So they cannot be separated from earth. And then in this novel, Rukmani stands for earth as well. The time of in between, already a memory coiled away like a snake within its hole. And then there is an unfinished, scaffolded building. A figure emerged, and it was Selvam. Thank God, he said, "Are you all right?" And he held me. And that was a warm welcome. And this is a very happy reunion. And a daughter too came. And this sudden appearance of her mother made her breathless. And Puli felt that, he's a stranger, out of the place. So he stood a little apart, awkwardly, clutching in his arms a dum-dum heart. I called to him, "My son," I said. "We adopted him, your father and I." "You look tired and hungry," Ira said, taking his arm. "Come with me and rest. I will prepare the rice." So she so hospitable and took his hand and then said that she'd prepare the rice. They walked on ahead. "Do not worry," Selvam said. "We shall manage." There was a silence. I struggled to say what had to be said. "Do not talk of it," he said tenderly, "unless you must." And Selvam knew that Rukmani was trying to speak about Nadan and his death. So he didn't want his mother to revive those painful memories. But Rukmani managed to say that it was a gentle passing. I will tell you later. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of the novel. Okay, right? So we will be discussing the themes and the techniques and issues the next day. So I will forward a note to the group. Okay, then good night.